The morning sun of Cerebrex cast long shadows across the smoking battlefield. Commander Sarah Chun stood on a hill overlooking the valley where her soldiers had fought through the night. Dead Kethmori bodies lay scattered across the red soil, like broken toys. The air still smelled of burned metal and alien blood. Sarah wiped sweat from her forehead and counted her losses. 12 good soldiers would not be going home. 12 families would get visits from officers in dress uniforms. But they had saved over 2 million Zelani lives in the city below. The math was simple, even if it hurt. "Commander Chun," called Lieutenant Marcus Webb as he climbed the hill. His armor was cracked down the left side and dried blood marked his face. "The last of the bug ships are pulling back. We got them all." Sarah nodded but did not smile. Victory always came with a price. She looked down at the Zelani city of New Thought. Its crystal towers caught the sunlight and threw rainbows across the sky, beautiful and peaceful just like its people. The Zelani could build wonders that made human engineers weep with joy, but they could not fight to save their own lives. "Any word from the other sectors?" Sarah asked. "Captain Rodriguez reports his sector is clear. So does Major Kim. The bugs hit us hard, but they could not break through." Webb paused and looked at the dead aliens in the valley. "It makes you wonder why they keep trying. They must know they cannot win." Sarah had wondered the same thing many times. The Kethmori were fierce fighters, but they seemed to have no real plan. They would attack, fight hard, then pull back when they started losing too many soldiers. It was like they were testing human defenses rather than trying to actually win. "Orders are orders, Lieutenant. Ours is not to wonder why." A soft humming sound made them both look up. A Zelani hovercraft was approaching, its silver surface reflecting the morning light. Sarah recognized it as one of the council ships. They were coming to thank her again, probably with another ceremony and another medal she did not want. The craft landed in a clear area near the hill. 3 Zelani stepped out, their tall, thin bodies moving with the grace that always made humans feel clumsy. Their leader was Council Member Velther, whose blue skin was marked with the silver lines that showed his high rank among his people. "Commander Chun," Velther said in perfect English, though his mouth was not made for human sounds. "Once again, you and your warriors have saved our people. The Council is grateful beyond words." Sarah saluted in the human way, then bowed in the Zelani fashion. "Just doing our job, Council Member." "That is what humans do." "And you do it so well," said another Zelani, whose name Sarah could never pronounce. "Your species has such a gift for violence. We are lucky to have you as our protectors." Something in the way he said, "gift for violence," made Sarah feel uncomfortable, but she pushed the feeling away. The Zelani were good people. They had welcomed humans into their alliance 200 years ago when Earth first reached the stars. They had shared their knowledge and their friendship. If they sometimes spoke of human nature in strange ways, it was only because they truly were a peaceful people who did not understand war. "The Council has voted to award you the Crystal of Honor," Velther continued. "It is our highest medal for those who defend Zelani lives." Sarah accepted the small crystal object. It was beautiful, like everything the Zelani made. But as she held it, she noticed Velther and his companions talking quietly in their own language. Sarah had learned to speak Zelani during her years on Cerebrex, though she rarely let anyone know this. Most humans found the language too difficult. What they were saying made her blood run cold. "Another successful use of the humans," one was saying. "They fight like animals when we point them in the right direction." "Yes," replied Velther. "Their violent nature makes them perfect tools. They never question, never think beyond the immediate fight. The Council is pleased. The humans have cleared another sector for our expansion plans. Soon we will be ready for the next phase." Sarah kept her face calm and continued to smile, but inside she felt like she had been punched in the stomach. Tools? Expansion plans? What were they talking about? The ceremony continued for another 10 minutes. Sarah accepted their thanks and their medal while her mind raced. When the Zelani finally left, she stood in silence watching their craft disappear into the sky. Commander? Webb was looking at her with concern. You look like you have seen a ghost. Sarah shook her head. Just tired, Lieutenant. It has been a long night. But as they walked back toward the human base, Sarah could not stop thinking about what she had heard. For 200 years, humans had fought and died to protect the Galactic Confederation. The Zelani, the peaceful Throck farmers, the artistic Vailtor, and the technology masters called the Nexus, all of them kind and grateful species who simply could not defend themselves against the savage Kethmori attacks. That was the story every human child learned in school. That was why young men and women left Earth to serve in faraway places like Cerebrex. They were the guardians of peace and civilization in a dangerous galaxy, but what if it was not true? What if the Zeleni were not as peaceful as they seemed? Sarah thought about other things she had noticed over the years. How Zelani requests for help always seemed to benefit them in new ways. How human soldiers were always sent to the most dangerous missions while alien forces stayed safely in support roles. How the Confederation's maps showed human territories getting smaller while alien territories grew larger. Sarah had always explained these things away. The aliens were simply better at administration and politics than humans. They were older civilizations with more experience. Humans were good at fighting, so they fought. Others were good at other things. But now she wondered if there was more to it. That evening, Sarah sat in her command center reading reports from across human space. The same pattern appeared everywhere. Human forces fighting desperate battles against Kethmori attacks. Human casualties mounting while alien support seemed to always arrive. Just a little too late to help with the worst fighting. She called up casualty reports from the past year. The numbers were getting worse. More humans were dying every month. But the Kethmori seemed to be getting stronger instead of weaker. How was that possible if humans were winning every battle? Sarah leaned back in her chair and stared at the ceiling. She had spent 15 years fighting for the Confederation. She had been wounded 4 times and had watched hundreds of good soldiers die. She had never questioned the mission because the mission was clearly right. Humans protected innocent people from monsters, but what if the monsters were not who she thought they were? Outside her window, the lights of new thought sparkled in the darkness. Somewhere in those crystal towers, the Zelani Council was probably planning their next request for human help. Another dangerous mission to another threatened world. Sarah Shun, defender of the innocent and guardian of peace, closed her eyes and wondered if she had been a fool. Lieutenant Marcus Webb had always been curious about things he was not supposed to see. That habit had gotten him in trouble at the academy, and it was about to get him in trouble again. He was leading a routine patrol through the outer farming regions of Throck Prime when he noticed something strange. The area was supposed to be empty except for peaceful Throck farmers growing food for the Confederation. But his scanner was picking up energy readings that did not match farming equipment. Sergeant Lopez, Webb called to his second-in-command. Do you see anything unusual about those hills? Lopez squinted through his binoculars. Looks like normal Throck farmland to me, sir. Lots of those purple grain fields they grow. But Webb's scanner kept beeping. The energy signature was too strong and too focused to be farm machinery. It looked more like a military installation. That was impossible, of course. The Throck were pacifists who had never built a weapon in their entire history. Circle around. To the north, Webb ordered his squad. I want to get a closer look. As they moved through the purple grain that grew as tall as a man, Webb noticed other strange things. The fields were laid out in perfect geometric patterns. That was normal for efficient farming, but these patterns looked more like defensive positions. There were clear lines of sight between the fields and raised areas that would make good shooting positions. Then he saw it. Half hidden behind a hill was a structure that definitely was not a farm building. It was too smooth, too angular, and it hummed with the kind of power that drove military shields and weapons. What the hell is that? Lopez whispered. Webb raised his binoculars and felt his stomach drop. The building was clearly a weapons facility. He could see Throck soldiers moving around it, carrying equipment that looked nothing like the simple tools peaceful farmers should have These Throck were wearing armor and carrying energy rifles that seemed more advanced than anything humans used. "Sir," came a voice over his unit. "This is Private Johnson. I'm seeing movement to our east. Looks like a patrol heading our way." Webb made a quick decision. "Everyone pull back to the transport. We are leaving now." The trip back to base felt like the longest flight of Webb's life. His mind raced with questions. The Throck were supposed to be peaceful farmers who could not hurt a fly. They had been part of the Confederation for 300 years and had never shown any military capability. Human forces protected them because they were helpless against any kind of attack, but what Webb had seen was not helpless. It was a well-organized military installation with advanced weapons and trained soldiers. Back at headquarters, Webb reported what he had found to his commanding officer, Colonel Harrison. The colonel listened to the report with a frown that grew deeper with every detail. "Lieutenant," Harrison said when Webb finished, "you must have made some kind of mistake. The Throck do not have military installations. They do not even understand the concept of warfare. Sir, I know what I saw. My scanner readings are all here in my report." Harrison looked at the data for a long moment. These readings could be explained by industrial farming equipment. The Throck use very advanced technology for growing food. As for the soldiers you thought you saw, they were probably just farm workers wearing protective gear. Webb wanted to argue, but he knew it would be useless. "Yes, sir. What are your orders?" "Forget what you think you saw, Lieutenant. And do not mention this to anyone else. We do not need to start rumors that could damage our relationship with our allies." But Webb could not forget. Over the next few weeks, he started paying attention to things he had ignored before, like how Throck farming equipment always seemed to be delivered in military transports, like how Throck agricultural workers were always in perfect physical shape, unlike farmers anywhere else in the galaxy, like how Throck farming communities were always built in locations that would be perfect for military bases. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, Commander Chun was having her own problems. Human casualty rates were climbing every month, but somehow the Kethmori seemed to be getting stronger instead of weaker. Supply shipments to human forces were arriving late or with missing equipment. Intelligence reports about Kethmori movements proved wrong more often than they proved right. The worst part was the lack of support from their allies. When human forces called for backup, Solani ships would arrive hours late. Throck reinforcements would get lost or delayed by mechanical problems. Vailter medical ships would have supply shortages that prevented them from helping wounded humans. Nexus technical support would malfunction at critical moments. Every excuse was reasonable. Space was big and coordination was difficult. Equipment failed sometimes. Supplies ran low. But when it happened over and over again, Chun started to wonder if it was really just bad luck. The crisis came during the Battle of Quantix Prime. The Nexus trade hub was under massive attack by the largest Kethmori force anyone had ever seen. Thousands of bug ships were attacking the station where millions of Nexus citizens lived and worked. Chun's task force arrived first, as always. Human ships immediately engaged the Kethmori fleet while waiting for allied reinforcements that were supposed to be only minutes behind them. The battle was going badly. The Kethmori had new weapons that cut through human shields like they were paper. Human ships were being destroyed faster than they could fight back. Chun was about to order a retreat when something incredible happened. The Nexus station suddenly came alive with defensive systems that Chun had never seen before. Massive energy shields sprang up around the station, stronger than anything humans had ever built. Weapon systems that had been hidden in the station's structure opened fire with devastating effect. In less than 10 minutes, the Nexus defenses had destroyed half the attacking Kethmori fleet. The remaining bugs fled in panic, and the battle was over. Chun stared at her screen in shock. The Nexus had defensive systems that made human technology look like stone knives and wooden clubs. They had weapons that could have ended any Kethmori attack in minutes. They had shields that could protect entire planets, and they had never used them before. In hundreds of battles where humans died protecting Nexus installations, the Nexus had never revealed that they could defend themselves perfectly well. Commander, her communications officer said quietly, we are getting a message. From the Nexus Station Commander. The alien face that appeared on Chun's screen looked embarrassed. Commander Chun, we must thank you for your brave rescue attempt. We are sorry that our defensive systems activated so late. There was a malfunction in our automated systems that delayed the response. Chun nodded politely, but inside she was screaming, malfunction? Those systems had worked perfectly. The timing had been precise, waiting until the Kethmori were fully committed to the attack before wiping them out. The Nexus had watched human ships get destroyed. They had waited while human soldiers died. Then they had casually demonstrated that they never needed human protection at all after the battle. Chun sat alone in her quarters and thought about everything that had happened over the past months. The Zilani calling humans tools. The Throck secret military bases, the Nexus hidden defenses. The convenient failures of Allied support that left humans to do all the dying. She pulled up casualty reports from across human space and compared them with reports of Allied losses. The numbers made her sick. For every 100 humans who died in battle, maybe one alien died. Human territories were shrinking while alien territories expanded. Human resources were being drained while alien resources grew. It was not bad luck. It was not coincidence. It was a pattern. Chun opened a secure communication channel to Lieutenant Webb on Throck Prime. When his face appeared on her screen, she could see that he had been thinking the same dark thoughts. Marcus, she said quietly, I think we need to talk. The secret meeting took place on a small asteroid station between Throck Prime and Cerebrix. Commander Chun arrived first, her ship disguised as a routine supply run. Lieutenant Webb came an hour later, officially checking communication relays. In the sector, they met in an abandoned storage bay where no one would think to look for them. Chun had brought files and data recordings. Webb had brought questions that had been eating at him for weeks. Before we start, Chun said, I need to know if you have told anyone else about what you found. No one, Commander. My CO told me to forget it and not mention it again. Webb paused. Have you talked to anyone about Quantix Prime? Not yet. But Marcus, what I saw there changes everything we thought we knew about our allies. For the next 2 hours they shared information that painted a picture neither of them wanted to believe. The Zilani had been manipulating human deployments to clear specific sectors of space. The Throck had military capabilities they had hidden for centuries. The Nexus had defensive systems that made human protection unnecessary. Even the artistic Veilter had been noticed by human intelligence officers doing things that looked more like psychological warfare than art. There has to be an explanation, Webb said, though he did not sound like he believed it. Maybe they are just being careful. Maybe they hide their defenses to avoid making the Kethmori target them more. Chun shook her head. I thought the same thing at first. But look at this. She showed him a star map that displayed human and alien territories over the past 50 years. The pattern was clear and horrible. Human space was shrinking. Alien space was growing. Every major battle that humans won seemed to result in new alien colonies in the cleared areas. We are not protecting them, Chun said quietly. We are clearing space for them to expand into. Webb studied the map with growing horror. But what about the Kethmori? They are still the enemy, right? They are still trying to destroy the Confederation, are they? Chun asked. Or are we just being told they are? Before Webb could answer, an alarm began blaring throughout the station. Chun's communicator crackled to life with an emergency signal. All human forces, this is Admiral Torres. We have a code red situation. Kethmori forces have broken through our lines at the Epsilon sector. Multiple human colonies are under attack. All available ships are ordered to respond immediately. Chun and Webb looked at each other with the same thought. Another crisis. Another emergency that would require human forces to drop everything and rush into battle. I have to go, Chun said. My task force is needed. Mine too, Webb replied. But, Commander, after this battle, we need to finish this conversation. They parted ways, but Chang could not stop thinking about their meeting during the long flight to Epsilon Sector. The Kethmori attack was the largest she had ever seen. Hundreds of bug ships were hitting 3 human colonies at once. It looked like a desperate final assault by an enemy that was losing the war. The battle lasted 18 hours. Human forces fought with everything they had, but the Kethmori seemed different this time. They fought more carefully, more intelligently than before. Instead of wild charges and mindless attacks, they used tactics and strategy. Chun was leading her squadron against a group of Kethmori fighters when something unexpected happened. One of the enemy ships, damaged and falling behind the others, began broadcasting on human communication frequencies. The voice that came through was not the inhuman shriek that humans expected from the bugs. It was a clear, intelligent voice speaking broken galactic standard. Human ships, please listen. We are not your enemy. We are trying to go home. Chin almost ignored the message. Everyone knew the Kethmori were mindless killers who could not speak any civilized language, but something made her respond. Kethmori ship, this is Commander Chun. You are attacking human colonies. How can you say you are not our enemy? Because humans are being lied to, the voice replied. We are not attacking. We are trying to take back what was stolen from us. The damaged ship was falling further behind. Chun could have destroyed it easily, but instead she found herself asking, what do you mean, stolen? These colonies were built on our worlds. Our people lived here for thousands of years before the Confederation came. They told us we had to leave so humans could be safe from us. They said we were dangerous and had to be moved to reservation worlds. Chun felt ice forming in her stomach. That is impossible. These are new colonies built on empty worlds. Empty because we were forced to leave them. Human Commander, your people are good fighters, but you are being used. The Confederation species are taking our worlds and telling humans that we are monsters who must be stopped. The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Confederation reinforcements. Zilani ships opened fire on the damaged Kethmori vessel, destroying it before it could say anything more. Commander Chun, came a transmission from the lead Zilani ship. You should not have been talking to the enemy. Kethmori used psychological warfare to confuse human soldiers. But Chin was already thinking about what the dying alien had said. After the battle, she accessed the colony records for the 3 attacked settlements. According to official files, all 3 worlds had been empty when humans found them. But when Chen dug deeper into the geological surveys, she found something disturbing. There were ruins on all 3 worlds. Old cities that had been destroyed before humans arrived. The ruins were not mentioned in any official reports, but they were clearly visible in the survey photos. Someone had deliberately left them out of the colony documentation. Chun called Webb on a secure channel that night. Marcus, I need you to check something for me. Find out what happened to the original inhabitants of any world where humans have built colonies in the last 20 years. 3 days later, Webb called back with an answer that made Chun's worst fears come true. Commander, I hacked into some old Confederation databases. There are records going back decades of something called the relocation program. Dozens of species have been moved off their homeworlds to make room for Confederation expansion. The Kethmori were one of them. Moved where? Chun asked, though she was starting to guess the answer. Reservation worlds in the Outer Rim. Barren planets with few resources. The records say it was for their own safety, to protect them from human aggression. Chun closed her eyes and felt the last of her faith in the Confederation die. Marcus. We need to contact other human commanders. Quietly. We need to find out how many others have noticed what we have noticed. Already working on it. Commander Rodriguez saw something strange on his last mission. Major Kim has been asking questions. About supply delays. Captain Walsh reported seeing Vailter ships in restricted space. How many people can we trust? More than you might think. A lot of human officers have been having doubts lately. They just did not know who to talk to about them. Chun stared out at the stars and tried to process everything she had learned. For 200 years, humans had been the military arm of a galactic empire that conquered worlds and enslaved entire species. Every battle they won, every enemy they defeated, every life they saved was part of a lie designed to make them feel good about being weapons in someone else's war. The species they thought they were protecting were actually using them to steal planets and destroy civilizations. The enemies they thought they were fighting were actually refugees trying to get their homes back. Marcus, Chun said finally, I think we need to try talking to the Kethmori again. But this time we do it, without any of our allies knowing about it. Commander Chun sat in the council chamber on the Confederation capital world of Unity Station. Around the curved table sat representatives from every member species. The Zilani with their blue skin and silver markings, the massive Throck with their thick arms and peaceful expressions, the flowing Vaelter whose bodies seemed to shift like water, the mechanical-looking Nexus with their glowing eyes and metal parts. All of them were staring at Chun with expressions she had never seen before, not gratitude, not friendship, something much colder. Commander Chun, said Council Leader Vaelter, these accusations you have brought before us are very serious. You claim that the Confederation has been deceiving humanity about the nature of our conflicts. Chun stood straight and kept her voice steady. I am not making accusations. I am presenting facts. The Kethmori are not mindless killers. They are refugees whose worlds have been taken from them. Humanity has been used as a weapon to drive peaceful species from their homes. The evidence was spread out on the table in front of her. Geological surveys showing ruins on human colony worlds. Communication recordings from Kethmori ships asking for their homes back. Database records of the relocation program. Photos of Throck military installations. Sensor readings from Nexus defensive systems. This evidence has been gathered by multiple human officers across many sectors, Chun continued. We have been lied to for 200 years. Council member Threshka of the Throck leaned forward with what looked like concern. Commander, we understand that war is difficult for humans. Sometimes soldiers see things that are not really there. Stress can make people believe in conspiracy theories. Are you saying I am crazy? Chun asked. We are saying that humans have always been prone to paranoid thinking, said Nexus Unit Prime 7. Your species sees enemies everywhere, even among friends. Chun felt her anger rising, but she kept it under control. Then explain the military. Base that Lieutenant Webb found on Throck Prime? Explain the defensive systems at Quantix Prime? Explain why? Kethmori ships broadcast messages asking to go home. The council members looked at each other in a way that made Chun's skin crawl. It was the look of people who had been caught and were deciding what to do about it. Finally, Vaelter spoke. Commander Chun, humanity has served the Confederation well for many years. You have been brave warriors and loyal friends. But perhaps it is time for humans to step back from military duties. You seem to be suffering from battle fatigue? Battle fatigue? Jin could not believe what she was hearing. You think this is about being tired? We think, said Vaelter artist-singer Melody Flame, that humans have forgotten their place in the galaxy. You were welcomed into our alliance because you were useful. You remain welcome as long as you continue to be useful. The room went very quiet. Jane felt like she was seeing these aliens clearly for the first time. The kindness was gone from their faces. The gratitude was gone from their voices. What was left was something cold and calculating. Our place? Chun repeated. What exactly is our place supposed to be? You fight when we tell you to fight, said Threshka. You ask no questions. You believe what we tell you to believe. In return, we allow humans to exist in our galaxy. Chun's blood turned to ice. Allow us to exist? Nexus Unit Prime 7's mechanical voice had no emotion at all. Humanity is a young and violent species. Without our guidance, you would have destroyed yourselves long ago. We gave you purpose. We gave you direction. We made you into something useful instead of something dangerous. And if we refuse to be useful anymore? Chun asked. The silence that followed was the loudest sound Chun had ever heard. Vaelter stood up slowly. Commander Chun, you will return to your ship. You will tell your human officers that this conversation never happened. You will continue to follow orders and protect the Confederation. If you do this, humans can continue to have colonies and ships and a place among the stars. And if we do not, then humanity will discover that Earth is a very small planet in a very large and dangerous galaxy. Chen looked around the table at faces that had seemed friendly for so many years. Now she could see the truth behind their expressions. They had never seen humans as equals or even as friends. They had seen humans as tools, useful weapons that could be pointed at problems and told to solve them. I see, Chun said quietly. So this is how it really is. This is how it has always been, said Melody Flame. You simply never understood before. Chun picked up her evidence files and walked toward the door. When she reached it, she turned back to face the council. You made one mistake, she said. What mistake is that? Asked Velther. You think humans only know how to be weapons. You are about to learn that we know how to be much more than that. Chun left the chamber and walked quickly to her ship. Her hands were shaking with anger, but her mind was clear. She activated her communicator and sent a coded message to every human commander she trusted. The meeting is over. They know that. We know. Begin Operation Homecoming immediately. Within hours the response began. Human commanders across the galaxy started receiving orders from the Confederation that they had been expecting. All human forces were to return to their home bases immediately for reassignment. All human equipment was to be turned over to alien forces. All human officers were to report for psychological evaluation, but the humans had been ready for this. Over the past month, Chen and her allies had been secretly preparing for what they knew was coming. Human ships had been quietly moving supplies to hidden locations. Human soldiers had been told to be ready to move on short notice. Human colonies had been warned to prepare for trouble. The Confederation had made the same mistake that bullies always made. They thought that because they had power, they would always have power. They thought that because humans had obeyed orders before, humans would always obey orders. They had forgotten that humans were very good at learning new things. Chun's ship was almost back to human space when her communications officer called out, "Commander, we are being followed. 3 Zelani cruisers are moving to intercept us." Are they hailing us? Chun asked. No, Commander. Their weapons are charged and ready, Chun smiled grimly. Then they have made their choice. Signal the fleet. Tell them the Confederation has shown its true face. The battle that followed was brief and decisive. The Zelani ships were larger and more advanced than Chun's small cruiser, but they had never actually fought a war before. They had always let humans do their fighting for them. They knew how to build weapons, but they did not know how to use them against an enemy that fought back with intelligence and determination. When the last Zelani ship was drifting dead in space, Chun opened a channel to all human forces. This is Commander Chun to all human ships and colonies. The Confederation has declared war on humanity. They have threatened to destroy Earth if we do not submit to their control. The time for being their weapons is over. The time for being free has begun. Across the galaxy, human voices responded with words that would echo through history. We copy, Commander. Humanity stands with you. Admiral Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of the Freedom's Light and watched Earth grow larger in the view screen. Home looked beautiful and peaceful, just like she remembered from her childhood. But surrounding the blue and green planet was the largest alien fleet ever assembled. Thousands of Confederation ships formed a metal ring around humanity's birth world. It had been 6 months since the war began. 6 months since the Confederation had shown their true face and demanded that humans submit or die. 6 months since Chun had spoken the words that started humanity's fight for freedom. The war had not gone as the aliens expected. The Confederation had been certain that humans would surrender quickly once they realized how outnumbered they were. After all, humans were just useful animals who followed orders. Without alien guidance, they would surely collapse into chaos and defeat, but humans had surprised them. Instead of panicking, human commanders had worked together in ways the aliens had never seen before. Instead of fighting alone, humans had reached out to other species that the Confederation had oppressed. Instead of just being soldiers, humans had become leaders. The first surprise had come when the Kethmori agreed to meet with human representatives. Chun herself had led the negotiations, expecting to find savage monsters who could barely speak. Instead, she found an ancient and wise civilization that had been driven from world after world by Confederation expansion. Your people fight with great skill, Kethmori war singer Thakmer had told her through a translation device. But you fight for others who use you. Why do you not fight for yourselves? Because we were taught that fighting for ourselves was wrong, Chun had answered. We were told that good people only fight to protect others. And now? Now we know that sometimes you have to fight for yourself before you can protect anyone. Else, the Kethmori had brought more than just their own ships to the Alliance. They had brought knowledge of dozens of other species that the Confederation had conquered or enslaved. The Mordain, who had been forced to work in Nexus factories. The Starwalkers, whose beautiful worlds had been turned into Zelani research stations. The Deep Singers, whose children had been taken by the Veilter for horrible experiments, one by one. These oppressed peoples joined what became known as the Free Galaxy Alliance. They brought ships and weapons and knowledge, but more importantly, they brought hope. For the first time in centuries, someone was willing to stand up to the Confederation and fight for what was right. The humans had also surprised the aliens with their ability to learn and adapt. The Confederation had given humans advanced technology for 200 years, but they had never taught humans how to build or improve it. They wanted to keep humans dependent on alien knowledge, but humans were natural engineers and scientists. Once they started taking apart alien equipment and studying how it worked, they began making improvements that the original builders had never thought of. Human weapons became more effective. Human shields became stronger. Human ships became faster and more maneuverable. Lieutenant Webb, now a colonel in the Free Galaxy Alliance, had become the leader of a new kind of warfare. Instead of the big battles that the Confederation expected, human forces used small unit tactics and surprise attacks. They would appear out of nowhere, strike hard at important targets, then disappear before the enemy could respond. The aliens. Think war is like a chess game, Webb explained to his officers. Big pieces moving in predictable patterns. But humans know that war is more like a street fight. You use whatever works and you never fight fair if you can help it. The results had been devastating for the Confederation. Their supply lines were constantly under attack. Their communication networks were sabotaged. Their colonies found themselves cut off and defenseless. The alien species who had never actually fought a war discovered that knowing how to build weapons was very different from knowing how to win battles. But the greatest surprise had been what happened to humanity itself. For 200 years, humans had been told that they were naturally violent and needed to be controlled. They had been taught that their aggressive instincts made them dangerous to civilized peoples. Now, fighting for their own freedom and the freedom of others, humans discovered something wonderful. They were not just good at violence. They were good at everything they set their minds to. They were natural diplomats who could unite different species. They were brilliant strategists who could outthink enemies with centuries more experience. They were inspiring leaders who could make others believe that victory was possible even against impossible odds. Chan looked around her bridge at the faces of her crew. Humans, Kethmori, Mordain, and Starwalkers working together as equals. 6 months ago, most of these species had never heard of each other. Now they were family, united by their shared desire for freedom. Admiral, called her communications officer, a young Starwalker named Brightwing. We are receiving a transmission from the Confederation fleet. Put it through. Velthar's face appeared on the screen, but he looked very different from the calm and superior alien Chun remembered. His blue skin was pale, and his silver markings seemed to have lost their shine. Behind him she could see other council members, looking equally desperate. Admiral Chun, Velthar said, we call for a ceasefire. The council wishes to negotiate. Chun almost laughed. Negotiate? 6 months ago, you told me that humans existed only because you allowed it. You threatened to destroy Earth if we did not submit. Now you want to negotiate? The situation has changed, Velther replied stiffly. Perhaps we can find a way for all species to coexist peacefully. All species? Chun repeated. Including the ones you enslaved? Including the ones you drove from their homeworlds? Including the ones you experimented on? Velther's expression showed that he knew he was beaten. What do you want? Chun looked at the display showing the huge Confederation fleet surrounding Earth. It looked impressive, but she knew it was mostly for show. Half those ships were running low on supplies because human raids had cut their supply lines. The other half were crewed by aliens who had never fought a real battle and were terrified of facing humans in combat. I want you to leave, Chun said. Simply, all Confederation forces will withdraw from human space immediately. All conquered species will be allowed to return to their homeworlds. All enslaved peoples will be freed. The Free Galaxy Alliance will take over protection of the worlds. You abandon? And if we refuse? Chun smiled, and it was not a nice smile. Then you will discover what happens when humans stop being your weapons and start being your enemies. For a long moment the screen was silent. Then Velther's shoulders sagged in defeat. We accept your terms. As Chun watched the Confederation fleet begin to withdraw from Earth, she thought about how much everything had changed. 6 months ago, humans had been proud to serve as guardians of galactic peace. They had believed they were protecting innocent civilizations from savage enemies. Now, they knew the truth. The real savages had been the ones giving the orders. The real innocents had been the ones suffering under Confederation rule. And humans, who had been told they were too violent to govern themselves, had become the greatest force for freedom. And just as the galaxy had ever seen, Webb's voice came over the comm system. Admiral, the last Confederation ship has jumped to hyperspace. Earth is free. Chun nodded and looked out at the stars. There was still work to do, worlds to liberate, peoples to free, a galaxy to rebuild based on justice instead of oppression, but for the first time in 200 years, humanity was not fighting someone else's war. They were fighting for something they believed in. They were fighting for the idea that all thinking beings deserved to be free, and that made all the difference.